Dimitri Symes, for the motion.
This was an interesting presentation. I never knew that I believed in all these things. But it's always, a learning experience, particularly when you debate Bush administration officials or many former administration officials. You kind of learn what you mean, what you thought, and what you said. I don't think that this was our position, and I hope that you will make your own judgment whether the previous presentation really reflected our thoughts. How can one be against democracy promotion? A very prominent American leader once have said, it is our destiny to promote democracy worldwide because we cannot yield moral ground to repressive regimes, because it would be unjust and wrong. And because also we could be never secure as long as there are repressive regimes, because they would not leave us alone and would continue to plot against us. Sorry, friends, it was not a prominent American. It was Leon Trotsky. And of course, he spoke not about promoting democracy, but promoting proletarian revolutions. But he believed in proletarian revolutions very strongly. He was a sincere man. So were many crusaders when they invaded the Middle East. And you remember what had happened and what it did cost to the Arabs, to the Christians, to the regions. We are not talking about our private beliefs. We are entitled to our beliefs. But democracy is not a religion. Democracy promotion should be policy. First of all, I will not hesitate to say that there are some things that are more important than democracy. If in the early 1930s, we knew what Hitler would do to the Jews and to others, would we allow him to come to power democratically? Wouldn't we consider stopping him a wise and honorable policy? And I completely agree with the Israelis now when they would not want to recognize democratically elected Hamas. And I do not care how many votes Hezbollah gets, but as long as they do what they do, we should judge them not by the process to which they came to power, but what they're doing to themselves, to others, and what they represent to the United States. I would yield to no one in my commitment to freedom. Freedom to select democracy for us, and to freedom to allow others to make their own choices. I am touched by anecdotes about Arab women. I don't need anecdotes when I hear about 2.5 million Iraqi refugees, 2.5 million, for whom in the name of democracy promotion, we are doing almost exactly nothing. And more than 100,000 civilians who have died so far in Iraq, and more dying. And our democracy promoters don't seem to be extremely concerned. There was a very prominent American who said in 1964 that extremism in defense of freedom is no wise. His name was Barry Goldwater. I disagree. Extremism in the name of whatever is never a virtue. And extremism is never a sound policy. First, about democracy as something that stops wars. Remember, Peloponnesian War among the Greeks, more than 2,500 centuries ago, involved democracies on both sides. Now, I just came from Washington. Who you think burned Washington in 1812? My impression is that this were the British. And of course, they had monarchy, but they were very democratic by standard of the time. Now, more Americans have died in the Civil War than in any other war in American history. Would you disagree that Confederacy was democratic, at least by the standard of the time? And what about the British in South Africa fighting each other at the end of the 19th century? Democracies do go to war against each other. Now about democracy and terrorism. Well, you know, I think that one of the most democratic countries I know is called Britain. And you see British-born citizens engaging in the most vicious terror against their country. Well, you would say, but this may be terror imported. Well, what about the Basque in Spain? What about IRA and their long war against Britain? What about the Oklahoma City bomber? Come on. We know very well that there are many causes of terror. And to say that the absence of democracy in Saudi Arabia and Egypt really is responsible for September 11th, you know, a claim like that has no scientific evidence whatsoever, is not based on interviews with the terrorists themselves. No senior CIA official who know how the suspects were interviewed and what they said would ever claim that these people have attacked the United States because their Arab regimes were not democratic. People love freedom. I completely agree with that. But you know, when people love freedom, they mean not only that they would be able to vote, or even to enjoy free press, or even freedom of religion, or even that they would be able to travel. You know what they also mean? They mean that they want to be able to make their own choices, including to make their own mistakes. And that's the American Revolution was all about. And when the only remaining superpower is coming to other countries and uses considerable American leverage and sometimes American military power, telling them, follow our indispensable guidance or else, I am surprised that some people are unhappy. And people who are unhappy are not just despots and are not just some brainwashed people. India is the greatest democracy in terms of numbers of people in India, and by now they have a long experience with democracy. And yet India is very strongly against democracy promotion. We should believe in democracy for ourselves. We should promote freedom of choice for others, but we should not presume that we know all the answers and that the only remaining superpower, we should be the judge and the jury, however noble our intentions may be.